there, geeks and gamers. It is I, Jesse Milestone. Haven't been here in a minute. Haven't talked to you in a while. Haven't talked in a while. I have been struggling for the past month or more on and off with chronic laryngitis. So talking has been a struggle and a challenge. My voice is mostly back to normal, which is very exciting, so I can come and speak to all of you again. And today I have an exciting topic to discuss. This was a big trending on the internet over the weekend, so you might have seen some stuff about this, about the model who codes, and some of the chatter going on about that. Now, I'd like to preface by saying that this individual in question, Lindsay Scott, is actually a personal friend of mine. As in, I learned about all of this happening from her calling me and being like, hey, I need a human sounding board who's not trying to book me for an interview, that kind of thing. So, suffice to say, if I say something about Lindsay, it is not hearsay or speculation from the internet, it is probably true. Because she's a human being that I know. So let's start with that. Now, second of all, the big question that's coming up too, right? This all has to do with women in coding. All of what came up here is the place of women in computer science and coding, and so it begs the question that a lot of people like to posit, because people talk about these things. They're like, oh, well, there just aren't as many women in computer science because women aren't as interested in that. They're not as genetically predisposed to like that or want to be good at it or be good at it. Now, let me know if you think that's the true thing. Some people think it's true, some people don't. Some people think that, like, we all have relatively equal capacities if we put our mind to things. Some people think that people have predilections for things not based on their gender. Some people think that people do have gender predilections for things. So let me know in the comments, are people predisposed to, by gender norms, to being good at one type of discipline and not the other? And if you believe that's the case, does that mean that we should not encourage or discourage people from pursuing hobbies, habits, careers, etc., in the outside of those norms? So that's a talking point right then and there. But in case you didn't hear what happened, so basically, Lindsay has an impressive resume as a model. Having walked for Victoria's Secret, for Calvin Klein, etc., on the runway, all that good stuff. And she has an equally, if not more so, impressive resume as a coder. She has developed several apps by herself. She writes in many coding languages, including one that's apparently hard and people don't usually use anymore, but she's good at stuff, so yeah. Some of these she learned in school. Some of these she taught herself. And since I've known her, she has made most of her living doing coding for various companies. She's developed apps on her own. I think I've said that already. Anyway, so it's impressive. She's written tutorials, things like that. She's been featured in places by people who know things about coding and stuff. So I had to look up why these things were impressive, because I don't know anything about coding or computer science. So a picture got posted and she saw it and captured it and put it on her Instagram. But someone had put up a picture of her when she'd walked the runway in the Victoria's Secret show in this ridiculous dress made of balloons. It's just amazing. And the caption is, this Victoria's Secret model also knows this, and this coding language and whatnot. And she got some shade from that, because they were like, yeah, she codes. I bet she can print hello world. Yeah. Oh my god, what a waste. Blah. Like, stupid stuff like that. And so she wrote back and she was like, actually, here's my coding resume. And pointed out that she very happily makes her living, a very comfortable living. She's got a nice apartment. Doing what she loves. She gets to work from home too, which I know pleases her. She works in her pajamas. Which I would like to do. Wait a second. I can do this job in my pajamas too! Stand by for future Geeks and Gamers video, Jessie in her pajamas. So she basically clapped back by citing her resume in coding and finishing by saying, gee, I wonder why 40% of women leave computer science jobs or cite hostile work environments in computer science jobs and whatnot. And there's a lot of evidence to show that there are great imbalances. And so this kind of got picked up and posted and retweeted and went viral. And she had a bunch of people, a lot of other women, tweeting it on the thread, talking about and retweeting it, saying, yes, I had the experiences as the only girl in my computer science class, showing up for my computer computer science class and having people tell me I wasn't in the right place, things like that. So obviously this is an issue, right? This is a thing. And so first of all, good on Lindsay for just being like, ha 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 ha. Bad on the rest of humanity for not accepting that a gorgeous model could also be a brilliant coder and vice versa. Because it's equally, right, it's an equally damning stereotype on both sides that, oh, she's a model, she must be stupid and useless. And, oh, that's a coder, they must be an ugly basement dweller. And the reality is that you can have models with Down syndrome, apparently. That was a totally different news story that we don't need to talk about. You can also have coders that are also models, that are beautiful, wonderful, attractive, normal, adjusted people. So good on Lindsay for breaking down stereotypes and stuff like that. But that also brings up for me a much bigger question. And I'd love your thoughts and insight on this topic. So we had this thing, we have the feminist movement and all of the iterations that it took. Now, I understand that there are some people who don't believe that there has been any difference in the treatment of the sexes in the course of history. That's a weird thought for me, if you have that. If you do, I'd really love to hear your basis on that, because it's something that doesn't resonate with me. Now, we've definitely seen a rapidly changing climate between the relationships between men and women. For example, the consent debate, right? The consent discussion started to happen over the past decade or so. Let's talk about what consent really means. Let's talk about the fact that when someone is blackout drunk, they can't give you consent. Let's talk about the fact that somebody submitting because they're afraid of the threat of physical violence is not the same thing as consent. Those were real and good conversations to have. Those are absolutely valid conversations. As a female person, I have been in situations where it is uncomfortable to voice a lack of consent, right? You fear certain repercussions or ramifications from that. There are repercussions and ramifications, right? So what have we done now? So we had that conversation, we brought it up, a bunch of, it was a eye-opener for some people and a big moment of like, oh, okay, well, let's really reevaluate this for like a small margin of people. Honestly, I think it was a relatively small group of people that was reached with that to be like, oh my God, this is what consent is and is not. I think the vast majority of humans kind of intuitively understand that and would never take advantage of someone else's consent. I think that there were some important things in that conversation to like better understand the difference in dialogue, the difference in consent between men and women, because it is a little bit different. And the difference in consent when one person is physically more powerful than the other. Those were good conversations. And then we had the conversation, and then we stopped needing to have the conversation, but we kept having the damn conversation, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, to the point now where if, like, you accidentally brush shoulders with somebody, they might scream at you for touching them without getting their consent. Oh my God, rape, rape, rape. So, this is the problem, right? This is the problem with a lot of feminism, things like that. Let's go and freak out now about everything is now about consent and having it and not having it, and we need like written permission and all this crazy stuff, to the point where it's just gotten bad and terrible, and now we've created a fear culture where nobody knows what to do or say, because it's like, okay, well, I thought that these were normal things that operated under like consent. I thought if I leaned in 70% of the way and you leaned the other 30, that was enough consent for kissing. But now apparently I have to ask if it's okay to kiss you, so we've gone too far is my point. Why aren't feminists focusing on these kinds of issues? On these actual inequality issues of like, oh, there is a lot of alienation happening to women in computer science careers. There is probably, and so I'd also like to bring up the fact that I understand that we're in a culture now, we've gotten to a point as a society where, especially with these conversations that are happening, there are also gender imbalances that go both ways. There always have been, and now some of those are getting highlighted as well. I don't know necessarily what men's issues are. Like, what are the issues men feel like where, oh man, we are being discriminated against, we are being treated unfairly? I'd like to know more about those. I'd be happy to discuss those things. I'm interested in them. But I look around at a world and I'm like, okay, as a female person, I can look to these things and say, oh, okay, those things are still a little messed up. Those things are still a little, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Let's have those conversations. Instead, we're still having the same stupid conversations about problems that I thought we had already solved. And that's really, it's bugging me. So what do you guys think? Like, is this a conversation we need to have? What is the conversation we we need to be having regarding breaking down stereotypes of people who are in coding, of women in coding, things like that, women in computer science. What do we need to be doing in that front? And to that earlier point too, it's like, do you think we should encourage more women to do computer science, not encourage or discourage, like where do you land on that one? Because let's face it, okay, I mean, obviously the computer science field can exist with one gender or another, but if we discouraged all men from becoming ballerinas, we wouldn't have ballet, because you need the men with the upper body strength to hoist the ballerinas and stuff. So, you know, at some point, and also it's really boring if everyone just conforms and does the things they're supposed to do and stuff like that. So what are the conversations that we should be having regarding gender right now? And what are the stupid ones that we need to stop having? That's the discussion I want to generate with this. Also, everyone, I really encourage you guys to look up Lindsay Scott. She's freaking amazing. She is brilliant. I mean, as a community of geeks and gamers, I feel like you will all appreciate the gorgeous Victoria's Secret model who is really good at computer science. I appreciate her every day as a wonderful human being in my life, and I hope you gets to appreciate her too. Finally, if anybody of you, look at my English, I'm as good as Jeremy. If any of you guys are up in the Midwest area, the Newaygo County Comic-Con is happening in Newaygo County, Michigan on October 20th, and both myself and Ivan Ortega will be present as guests. And you'll get to meet us. Ivan's promising to bring lightsabers and do sword fights. I'll have mindless entertainment merch, and I'm always ready to yell on command. We may even hit up Jeremy and bring up some Geeks and Gamers merch. It'll be a really, really fun time. So Newaygo County Comic-Con on October 20th. We would love to see you there. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about this whole thing, this whole stuff and everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to have some discussions about, you know, gender roles in the geeky and gamery communities and things like that. So, hooray, I'm back. I don't know what that is.